All right, so I want to first say thank you to you all for being here or watching. My name is Mariam Abou-Dib, and I'm Executive Director of Teamsters Canada. And I'm here to essentially facilitate this press conference. Je suis Mariam Abou-Dib, je suis la directrice exécutive de Teamsters Canada. Je vais jouer le rôle d'animatrice pour la conférence de presse et on vous remercie d'être présent et présente. As you can see, we are the main stakeholders in the trucking industry, and the main stakeholders are here and united on ringing the alarm on a very crucial issue that we have been dealing with for a number of years in the trucking industry. Employers and union representatives are here. Leadership is here. Teamsters Canada, the Canadian Trucking Alliance, and the Association du Camionnage du Québec have joined forces to call for urgent federal action to end the growing Driver Inc. Crisis in this country and in this trucking sector. The Driver Inc. crisis is a tax evasion and an employee misclassification scam. You will hear a little bit more about that in moments. But we also want to recognize that both there has been, due to a lot of lobbying, there has been some movement from the Labor and the Transportation ministries that have been very receptive to hearing, listening, and taking some actions, good first steps on addressing some of the issues, but it is far from complete. It's not all that's needed, and there are some missing partners here, namely the CRA and procurement or public works, and we will address some of these issues in a moment. On se retrouve ici ensemble et unis du secteur du camionnage. C'est les parties prenantes du secteur, Teamsters Canada, l'Alliance canadienne du camionnage, l'Association du camionnage du Québec, pour exiger une urgente intervention fédérale afin d'arrêter la prolifération du stratagème ce qui est chauffeur Inc. Dans le secteur du camionnage canadien. Et on veut, avant de commencer, reconnaître qu'il y a eu des départements et des ministères comme le ministère du Travail et Transport qui ont fait des pas. On a eu des pas d'avance, mais il nous reste beaucoup de choses à faire encore et on va vous en discuter. On a François Laporte. François Laporte is the president of Teamsters Canada. Stephen Laskowski, c'est le président of the Canadian, is the president of the Canadian Trucking Alliance. Claude Robert is the president of the Groupe Robert Transport. Scott Tilley, who is the president of the Tandit Group of Companies, and John McCann, who is the Freight and Tankhaul Director for Teamsters Canada. There is a press kit on the side here, and also in this QR code, it goes directly to your phone, and we'll be here for questions in a moment as soon as the initial presentations are done. François?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Mariam, for this introduction. My name is François Laporte. I am the president of Teamsters Canada, representing tens of thousands of truck drivers. Here in this room this afternoon, you have, as Mariam mentioned, the major stakeholders in the trucking industry. And we have a very good representation. Almost all the trucking companies are part of the Canadian Trucking Alliance, and in the labor movement, the Teamsters Union is the most predominant organization in the trucking industry. So my intervention will be in both language, French and English. We are here today to denounce a situation that is critical. and that is very, very detrimental for the industry. This is a situation that is detrimental for the truck drivers, for the carrier, and I will let my friends from the Canadian Trucking Alliance to talk more about what is at stake for the industry. We've worked hard over decades to build a strong and reliable trucking industry. We are part of the supply chain. We negotiate good contract, and the Trucking Alliance, their members are also legitimate carrier who are working out. But now we have reached a point where competition is unfair. On a atteint un point dans notre histoire où la compétition est complètement inégale. Le problème des Driver Inc. S'échelonne à travers le pays. C'est un problème qui prive les chauffeurs qui sont sous le régime du Driver Inc. De l'ensemble des protections que peut procurer le Code du travail, et c'est une situation qu'on dénonce. Alors, nous demandons le plus rapidement possible l'intervention des différents départements du gouvernement canadien, que ce soit Transport Canada, Revenu Canada et le département du travail, du ministère du Travail. But also, we request an immediate intervention from the various departments of all the jurisdiction across Canada, not just the Canadian government, but also the provincial government, because they have also a responsibility, and we hope that they will hear our message today. So having said that, I'd like to introduce Stephen from the Canadian Trucking Alliance.
Thank you very much. And thanks to Teamsters Canada, the largest union representing for hire trucking in Canada, and the Canadian Trucking Alliance is the largest trucking association in Canada, representing over 5,000 fleets from coast to coast. As Teamsters Canada has said, we're here today to sound the alarm bells that we have been sounding for many years, that there is a crisis in our industry, a crisis of labor abuse funded by a tax scheme. We often get asked the question, how big is this problem? Between 2018 and 2021, the Canadian trucking industry in the long-haul sector saw a 17% growth in this model. Other sectors of the economy experiencing what we call zero-based employees, meaning they were employees and overnight turned into not employees, saw a negative 1% growth. That is staggering. With regards to what this is done and how this works, it utilizes a tax mechanism called personal services businesses, which is legal as long as you're filing your taxes. Any driver that would form a PSB would pay more taxes. Ask yourself that question. Why would anyone do it? Why would anyone pay more? Why would anyone give up all their labor rights? ESDC has already investigated this, and they have found 60% in a pilot study of carriers they investigated were using the Driver Inc. model. The government knows. In the fall economic statement, the government stated that it would bring forward $26 million for enforcement of Driver Inc., and that is a good start. We are still waiting, though, for confirmation that indeed that funding has been approved. With regards to the CRA, the fall economic statement said that we indeed would see in the budget 2023 a solution to the PSB issue or our tax compliance issue. The budget was silent on the issue. CTA is calling on CRA and ESDC to do two things. One, make sure that enforcement, when it arrives, is meaningful and not the cost of doing business. That CRA lift the moratorium on T4As in our sector to bring transparency and accountability to the tax system. And last but not least, ESDC and CRA work together on joint audits, starting with those 60% carriers who already are having violations. Thank you for the opportunity, and I'll pass it over to Claude Robert.
Bonjour à tous, mesdames, messieurs. Claude Robert, Groupe Robert, Boucherville, Québec. En continuité avec les messages qui vous ont été partagés un peu plus tôt, aujourd'hui, je veux m'adresser à vous pour vous sensibiliser du point de vue d'un camionneur aux problématiques qu'on vit avec ce qu'on appelle les chauffeurs incorporés. Le gouvernement fédéral a promis à l'automne d'investir plus de 25 millions pour combattre le stratagème des chauffeurs Inc. Par contre, dans le dernier budget, tel que mentionné plus tôt, aucune information n'a été partagée avec les citoyens du Canada et nous, comme industrie, on est très concernés. On est inquiets. Le stratagème chauffeur incorporé coûte très cher aux Canadiens, aux Québécois. Quand on dit cher, très cher. Les estimés représentent plus de 1 milliard par année. C'est beaucoup d'argent. Ces argents auraient pu aider à construire ou des écoles, des infrastructures et faire une quantité de choses incroyables. C'est beaucoup d'argent. Hélas, ces argents-là sont dans les poches d'entrepreneurs qui trichent, d'entrepreneurs vicieux, qui compétitionnent de façon déloyale notre industrie. Une harmonisation s'impose au niveau national. Les provinces, les ministères doivent travailler en collaboration étroite afin de mettre un terme à ce stratagème, un modèle qui est utilisé au Québec, en Ontario et partout à travers le Canada. Des recommandations ont été faites à la CNSST dans le but justement d'enrayer et de voir si ces entreprises-là paient leur quote-part de contribution selon les revenus qu'ils accumulent. Le ministre Boulet a été sensibilisé à la chose et oui, il y a de l'espoir que du travail soit effectué pour identifier les entreprises qui ne contribuent pas leur quote-part à la CNSST, tout simplement parce que leurs employés ne sont pas reconnus comme étant des employés. Donc, ils passent à côté, si vous voulez, de l'obligation de s'enregistrer. Il en va de même avec Revenu Québec. Lors d'une rencontre récente à Québec, les gens ont reconnu l'importance du dossier et, évidemment, certains dossiers sont sous enquête. Il est encourageant de voir qu'enfin, les ministères agissent et veulent contribuer à mettre un terme à cette pratique qui est tout à fait déplorable pour notre industrie. Nous sommes convaincus que pour arriver à réaliser des choses, les gens doivent absolument travailler en collaboration, tant au fédéral que provincial, avec ce qu'on appelle les différents ministères, comme les ministères du Travail, le ministère des Transports pour les vérifications routières, évidemment le ministère du Revenu pour s'assurer que chacun fasse sa déclaration et évidemment les ministères qui touchent l'immigration. Tous les jours, vous voyez des camions sur la route, des blancs, des rouges, des bleus, des jaunes. Les nôtres sont jaunes. Et on aimerait que ça représente une image symbolique de gens qui opèrent de façon professionnelle, sécuritaire, tout en respectant les règles de Dieu. Notre métier, livrer des produits à temps, à vous tous consommateurs, mais aussi représentants d'institutions et autres, et nous souhaitons pouvoir continuer à le faire de façon professionnelle. Mais pour ce faire, il faut qu'on puisse le faire avec la possibilité d'avoir des situations qui sont justes et équitables dans notre industrie. Nos associations qui représentent des milliers de camionneurs et des centaines de milliers de travailleurs font des représentations depuis plusieurs années concernant l'arrivée de ce qu'on appelle les chauffeurs incorporés. Ces derniers nous compétitionnent et se qualifient comme étant des travailleurs autonomes que nous, dans notre industrie, on appelle des travailleurs qui travaillent au noir. Des gens qui travaillent, qui sont payés sous la table. Et tout le monde a entendu parler au fil des années de cette situation-là. Le fait que les revenus de ces travailleurs ne soient pas déclarés comme étant des salaires les exempte de payer des impôts. Et il en va de même pour les entreprises qui les embauchent, qui se soustraient à toute forme d'obligation concernant à la fois les bénéfices marginaux aux travailleurs et l'assurance d'emploi, les régimes de retraite et tout ce qui touche les bénéfices accordés aux employés. Comment pouvons-nous tolérer à travers le pays pareille injustice, pareille inégalité? Dans une société que l'on veut juste et égalitaire, comment pouvons-nous parler d'équité dans une industrie et dans ce beau grand pays quand on parle des droits des individus et des droits à la personne et qu'on ne s'attaque pas à une tâche qui s'appelle les chauffeurs incorporés? Des milliers de transporteurs souffrent de cette concurrence déloyale qui nous fait paraître injuste auprès de nos clients. Ces derniers se questionnent avec raison sur les différentiels de taux et de propositions tarifaires, mais comme on le dit souvent, les chiffres sont éloquents. On dit que les chiffres ne mentent pas. Il faut se poser la question, et il faut poser la question aux menteurs et aux tricheurs. Je conclus à tous les chauffeurs qui se sont fait abuser dans ce système de tricheurs et de tricherie. Je vous dis, venez nous visiter, nous, les entreprises qui essayons de respecter les règles à travers le pays. On a besoin de vous et on a besoin de vous rapidement. Depuis 60 ans, les conditions de travail et la protection des camionneurs, c'est notre préoccupation et on sait qu'on s'est amélioré partout et à tous les niveaux de façon incroyable. Pourquoi voulons-nous perdre ces acquis accumulés et opter pour une situation avec les chauffeurs incorporés? Merci. On attend vos questions. Je vais inviter Scott. Merci.
Thank you, Claude. Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to talk a little bit about the Canadian fabric that is being attacked under this program. I can talk on this subject rather passionately and for a very long time, but I have some notes here that I'd like to make sure I cover the points that we're here to deal with today. I'm a carrier based in Oakville, Ontario, with over 200 employees. I pay fair. I pay direct. The employees get all the benefits required and more. I treat them as the labor code intends, not because of the code, but because it is right. In some cases, employees are represented by the Teamsters, and in some cases, they are not. This is how our system works. This is why the Teamsters and the Canadian Trucking Alliance is sharing a stage today, to protect our system. We are here to promote fairness, equity, and safe operations. We are here to help protect the Canadian social network. If we fail, so will all of the Teamsters and the professional trucking companies of Canada, because if we fail, our industry will regress by at least 40 years. With truck drivers getting less concern for road safety, and a diminished and eroding social fabric for the country. Because if the Driver Inc. model continues to be supported by some members of the Canadian government, we will lose what we, employees, trucking companies, and Teamsters, have all worked so hard to build. Trucking is an essential service with focus on developing and supporting professional truck drivers. We do not want to go backwards. There is a group generically called Driver Inc. with operations across Canada. They have established an unlevel playing field by breaking the rules, and it misses one critical thing: equity. Their methods are unsavory. It needs to be cleaned up. In the place of equity, the trucking companies that force the Driver Inc. model on unsophisticated and unknowing individuals do not provide the following, which are the things that help define the social fabric that Canadians so strongly support. Deductions and remittances for Driver Inc. employees are not sent to Ottawa. There is no pay for holidays, work or go hungry. There is no pay for statutory holidays. Statutory means mandatory, and they ignore these. Work or go hungry. They do not pay CPP, EI, or workman's compensation, all things that help Canadians now and in the future. In the future, the Driver Inc. employee is on their own. For now, if they get hurt, well, it sucks to be you. In Ontario and BC, the Driver Inc. companies avoid employer health tax, less money to hire doctors and nurses to keep an equitable healthcare system available to all. Driver Inc. companies can work drivers 80-plus hours per week and never pay overtime because they write their own rules. EDSC does not matter to them. They are invisible. Surprisingly, the government even supported the inequity of this system. Just this year, they added 10 sick days for real company drivers through legislation, deserving days for our drivers. And lo and behold, guess who does not pay these paid days? Driver Inc. Driver Inc. does not have to recognize the Pay Equity Act, the Employment Equity Act, Canada Labour Code Part 1, Industrial Relations, Part 2, Health and Safety, or Part 3, Fairness and Equity for their employee drivers. There are few rules for Driver Inc., just the ones they make or cannot get around. Sounds not quite legal to me. It seems to be an unsavory bunch. We need to stop these atrocities that are being inflicted upon thousands of truck drivers in Canada through the Driver Inc. structure that has been allowed to begin to take over our industry. It is more than a toehold. It is rampant and growing. The Teamsters and the Canadian Trucking Alliance, made up of the most professional trucking companies from coast to coast in Canada and all provincial trucking associations, are asking for you to get this story out before it's too late, before driver safety is compromised, before all drivers are working beyond the hours of work that is legal in Canada, before the healthcare system deteriorates more because they all avoid EHT and government remittances. Make no mistake, this is at a crisis stage. Either the rotten, smelly tactics of Driver Inc. get called out and stopped, or the problem of labor abuse wins, and the crisis becomes more rampant, unstoppable. The CTA, individual carrier owners, and the Teamsters are here to protect good jobs, safe jobs, professional jobs for every driver. We want equity, we want fairness, we want safety as a priority. We want good, healthy industrial relations, and we want all to pay their fair share to protect the Canadian fabric that is the envy of the world. What we want is simple. We want the government to apply the rules as soon as possible. This has gone on long enough. The alternative, Driver Inc., will affect us all, and the clock is now ticking. I'm going to turn it over now to John McCann.
I'll try to be as quick as I can. I know we're strapped for time. Good afternoon. Bonjour, everybody. Thank you all for attending this important press conference on the subject of Driver Inc. and its impact on the freight industry in Canada. My name is John McCann, and I'm the National Freight and Tank Haul Director for Teamsters Canada, and I hope that by the end of our presentation, you will all have a better understanding of what Driver Inc. is and the impact it is having on the freight industry and what needs to be done to curb the use of Driver Inc. and level the playing field for all who work in this industry. Put into its simplest form, Driver Inc. is the practice of misclassifying drivers of company-owned equipment as independent contractors in order to sell their driving services back to that carrier. By doing this, those carriers are able to reduce their operational expenses and drastically undercut industry rates by avoiding payment of mandatory employee-related source deductions. The key issue here is about fairness and assuring that all involved play by the same rules, so that one employer is not able to have an unfair advantage over another. It's about assuring that a vulnerable labor force is not taken advantage of simply because they just want an opportunity to work and support their families. It's about assuring that all who work in this industry do so without the fear of reprisal and in a safe manner, so that they can come home after their trip and not in the back of a police car, an ambulance, or worse, don't come home at all. A freight industry is the backbone of the supply chain of every country, and Canada is no exception. For years, our freight industry has supported good-paying middle-class jobs, allowing employees and employers alike the ability to earn a decent living, support a family, and put money back into the economies of their communities. And we feel that Driver Inc. is simply an abuse of vulnerable workers, the majority of whom probably don't even know they're being forced into working under unscrupulous conditions. And if left unchecked, it will surely send Canada's freight industry down a road we dare not travel. And that is why we are here today as a united group to implore all levels of government to act immediately and enforce the new regulations against the bad actor employers, and vow to protect the legitimate carriers and the thousands of legitimate employees they employ whose livelihoods are being threatened by those who engage in the scheme that is Driver Inc. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now, if there are any questions here or remotely, be happy to respond.
So if you have a question here online, please use the raise hand function to notify us of your questions. Si vous avez des questions, vous êtes en ligne, utilisez la fonction lever main pour nous faire part de votre question. First question, Chris Reynolds. Go ahead.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me okay?
Go ahead, Chris.
Can you hear me okay right now?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Thank you. Sorry. You folks mentioned a number of government departments that might have to work collaboratively. This problem is to be resolved, or at least cracked down on it. I was hoping we could get a little more specificity on which department in particular really needs to get their act together to deal with this. Is it CRA?
Thanks for the question, Chris. It's Steve Laskowski at the CTA. ESDC has stepped up. I think jointly we would say that what we need from ESDC and from the Government of Canada is approval of the funds to get more enforcement out across Canada, and ensuring that enforcement is not the cost of doing business. With regards to the CRA, we need action. And the action starts with the lifting of the moratorium on T4As that will bring transparency to the system, and joint audits or individual audits of these trucking companies taking part in this illegal activity.
Thanks. And just to get a little more granular here with a follow-up, when these Driver Inc. drivers who are being exploited, as you folks say, are paying taxes, presuming they pay some taxes, and they don't pay them under the classification of a personal services business, a PSB, what would they be paying their taxes as? A supposedly small business?
Stephen?
So, Christopher, without going down the rabbit hole too far, two things I'll answer for that question. Again, it's Stephen Laskowski from the Canadian Trucking Alliance. Is one, the rate of a personal services business would, as a truck driver, as a personal business, from a tax perspective, would pay more tax. It's really that simple. With regards to, that's not taking into account all the things that Claude, the Teamsters, and Scott brought up about foregoing overtime, holiday pay, severance pay, workers' compensation, all of those aspects. So one of the constants that both Teamsters CTA and the carriers agree to beyond CRA and ESAs is educating drivers who may not know of their rights, may not know of their labor rights or their tax obligations. In many circles on the tax obligations, many drivers believe under the PSB model that the only taxes they pay are GST and HST. That is the issue. There is a lack of understanding in the driving community for those participating in it, and then there is also those who are participating in this willingly. Regardless, enforcement needs to happen. This is a crisis.
Thank you.
We're good? No other questions? Okay. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you very much. Okay. Merci.